Weird Crime Facts, Part 22. In 2013, a 5-year-old girl was kidnapped out of her driveway in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. But 15-year-old Tamar Boggs chased the car for 20 minutes until the kidnapper released the child. Iceland is so safe that parents routinely leave their babies outside to nap in their strollers while they run errands. This is a photo of Kwame Ajamu being told by a judge that he is a free man after being falsely imprisoned for 27 years. Future biotechnology could make prisoners feel as though they're serving a 1,000-year sentence in a matter of hours. Drugs and electronics could be developed to distort prisoners' minds into thinking that time was passing more slowly. Weird Nature Facts, Part 20. Horseshoe crabs have been around for 450 million years and have blue blood. Instead of hemoglobin, their blood contains hemocyanin, which gets its blue color from oxygenated copper. Their blood is so valuable to the medical industry that a gallon costs around $60,000. The sting of the tarantula hawk wasp is so unbearable that victims are often advised to lie down and start screaming to avoid further injury. In 2018, Russian scientists collected and analyzed 300 prehistoric worms from Arctic permafrost. After being thawed, 2 of the worms began to move and eat. Both of the worms are estimated to be well over 30,000 years old. Weird War Facts, Part 15. During World War II, JFK was stranded in the Solomon Islands and ended up carving a message into a coconut. A native islander delivered it to the closest U.S. military base and saved his life. When he became president, Kennedy used the coconut as a paperweight on his desk in the Oval Office. This is a 1942 photo of Japanese troops using prisoners of war for target practice. During World War II, a German pilot spotted an American pilot's crippled plane in the sky. He noticed that the gunner was dead, the crew was injured, and that they didn't pose any threat. So instead of destroying the plane, he led it to safety and spared the men's lives. 40 years later, the 2 pilots reunited and became fishing buddies. Known to push other penguins into the water to make sure that the area is free from predators. The song Ring Around the Rosie is believed to originate from the Great Plague of London in 1665. The Rosie refers to the rash that covered people who contracted the disease, the smell of which they tried to cover up with a pocket full of posies. The ashes were the cremated remains of the dead, and well, they all did fall down. The epidemic wiped out nearly a quarter of London's population within a span of 18 months. Morbid Facts, Part 96. In 2004, an Iranian girl was left blind and disfigured after a man threw acid in her face for declining his marriage proposal. In response to his crime, instead of paying money or serving jail time, the girl insisted that her attacker should have 20 drops of acid squeezed into his eyes. The Iranian courts ended up agreeing with the punishment. On average, about 12 humans are killed by sharks every year, but about 12,000 sharks are killed by humans every hour. In 1915, Essie Dunbar passed away after suffering from a seizure, and her sister was late for her funeral. When she arrived, the ministers had already lowered the coffin into the ground, but she demanded to see her sister one last time. Upon opening the coffin, the dead woman sat up and smiled. She lived on for another 47 years. Morbid Facts, Part 85. Denver Airport's Blue Mustang sculpture is nicknamed Blucifer because of its glowing red eyes. Just before it was unveiled in 2006, Blue Mustang's artist died after a 9,000-pound piece of the sculpture fell on him, adding credence to the theories that Blucifer is haunted or cursed. In 1963, 2 criminals in Mexico convinced local villagers that they were prophets and demanded worship and tribute. Prostitute Magdalena Solis was paid to imitate an Incan goddess as part of the scam. Suffering from religious delusion, she started to genuinely believe that she was a goddess. She soon took over the cult and started sacrificing her followers and drinking their blood. Weird Movie Facts, Part 4. Actor Barkhad Abdi only received $65,000 for his award-winning role in the movie Captain Phillips. After production, he returned to selling mobile phones at his brother's shop in a Minneapolis mall. Dwayne Johnson's beard in the movie Hercules was made out of the testicle hair of a yak. Actress Tammy Lynn Leppert, who played a small role in the movie Scarface, disappeared soon after filming. She hasn't been seen nor heard from since 1983, when she was only 18 years old. Paranormal Activity had a budget of only $15,000 but made nearly $200 million at the box office. During the first screening, people started walking out, and studio executives thought that the movie was bombing. They later learned that the viewers were leaving because they were too scared to continue watching. Weird Nature Facts, Part 22. Coconut crabs have a great sense of smell and will travel in packs to find food. They'll eat virtually anything and are basically the raccoons of the Indo-Pacific Islands. A Kansas homeowner turned on his sprinklers before leaving to escape a wildfire. He returned to find his home completely intact while everything around it had burnt to the ground. In the 1950s, a family from Texas had a pet lion named Blondie. They never had a single incident with her, and she died of old age as a beloved member of the family. A Colombian woman was raised by monkeys after being kidnapped and abandoned in the jungle as a child. She spent 5 years living with a colony of capuchin monkeys before being rescued by hunters. When she was found, she didn't know how to cooperate with other humans. Morbid Facts, Part 86. In 2007, the Coble family lost their 2 girls and 1 boy in a horrific car accident. A year later, the mother gave birth to triplets, 2 girls and 1 boy. The reason The Beauty and the Beast was written was to help young girls accept arranged marriages. This woman single-handedly buried and gave funerals to more than 40 gay men at the height of the AIDS epidemic. Many victims were never claimed by their families due to stigmas surrounding the disease. Weird War Facts, Part 12. Lieutenant Colonel A.J. Drexel Biddle was a master in hand-to-hand combat. He used to order his troops to surround him with bayonets before single-handedly disarming each of them without any of his own weapons. This photo of one such demonstration was taken in 1943. Tsar Bomba was the largest bomb ever set off by far. It produced a mushroom cloud 168 times taller than the Empire State Building. Its power output was 1.4% of the sun's, and it sent shockwaves that traveled around the Earth 3 times. After a battle in Vietnam, Master Sergeant Roy Benavidez had 37 puncture wounds, exposed intestines, and a broken jaw. He was pronounced dead until he spit in the face of a doctor who was zipping him up in a body bag. Morbid Facts, Part 97. This is a photo of Emmett Till's killers smiling after being acquitted of the brutal murder in 1955. Protected against double jeopardy, the next year the 2 men publicly admitted that they did indeed kill the 14-year-old boy. The movie premiered in 1977, France was still executing criminals with the guillotine. In 1967, 15-year-old James Gordon Wolcott shot and killed his mother, father, and sister after sniffing airplane glue. Today, he's an award-winning psychology professor and the head of the behavioral science department at a university in Illinois. Weird Crime Facts, Part 20. Infamous streaker Mark Roberts was sponsored by GoldenPalace.com to streak during Super Bowl 38. He was paid $1 million, given front row tickets, and was provided with one of the best defense attorneys in the U.S. He was able to reduce his charges down to a misdemeanor and a $1,000 fine. Brian Banks spent 6 years in prison before his alleged rape victim admitted that it never happened. This was the moment when he was exonerated. In 2006, 51-year-old Susan Walters was attacked by a hitman that her husband had hired to kill her. After finding out who sent him, she ended up killing him with her bare hands. Morbid Facts, Part 99. A few days before he was assassinated, President Lincoln told several people about a dream he had. In the dream, Lincoln saw a soldier standing beside a casket, and he could also hear people weeping. Still dreaming, Lincoln asked the soldier, "Who's dead in the White House?" The soldier turned to him slowly and replied, "The President." In the late 1980s, a woman went on a vacation getaway where singles could meet other singles. She quickly thought she had met the man of her dreams and decided to sleep with him that night. When she woke up in the hotel room the next morning, the man was gone and there was a small wooden coffin on the table next to her. Inside was a note that read, "You are now HIV positive. Welcome to the world of AIDS." Weird Space Facts, Part 3. These extraterrestrial rocks were discovered in the sand of the Sahara. Libyan desert glass is one of the rarest minerals on Earth, and it's of unknown origin, since only a celestial impact or a nuclear explosion would have resulted in such a geological anomaly. Pieces of the extremely rare mineral were even found in the tomb of King Tut. This is what Saturn would look like if it were as close to Earth as the Moon. It's been estimated that there are more stars in the universe than there are grains of sand on Earth. But there are more atoms in one grain of sand than there are stars in the universe. When Southern California was hit with a massive power outage in 1994, a bunch of LA residents began to call 911 about strange clouds hovering overhead. In reality, they were just seeing the Milky Way for the first time. Weird War Facts, Part 16. Teddy Roosevelt's son Quentin fought in World War I as a pilot. He was killed in a dogfight and his plane crashed behind enemy lines. But the Germans gave him a full military burial with honors. They apparently admired the fact that a president's son chose to fight. During World War II, prisoners of war were treated so nicely in Canada that many of them didn't want to leave when they were released. During the same war, Soviet forces tried to train dogs to run under enemy tanks with bombs on their backs. However, this evil plan fortunately ended up failing miserably. Because the dogs had been trained using Soviet tanks, when it came to the real battlefield, many dogs ended up running under friendly Soviet tanks, blowing them up instead. Morbid Facts, Part 87. In August of 1864, President Lincoln lost his hat when his horse was startled by a loud noise. The hat was recovered later with a bullet hole through the crown. The loud noise was apparently an assassination attempt by an unknown sniper. Ella Harper was born with an extremely rare genetic condition that curved her knees in the opposite direction. She was popular in sideshows and was known as Camel Girl because she preferred to walk on all fours. In 2009, Moscow native Julia Popova was stabbed in the neck by a mugger. But she was in so much shock that she walked home without even realizing that the knife was embedded in her, just millimeters from her spinal cord. She spent over an hour with the blade in her back before she went to the hospital. Weird Nature Facts, Part 23. In 1986, a 5-year-old boy fell into a gorilla enclosure at the Jersey Zoo and lost consciousness. But a male gorilla named Jumbo stood between the boy and the other gorillas in a protective gesture. He even stroked the boy's back to comfort him until he was rescued. This incident helped create a positive public perception of gorillas. Costing $39 million per gallon, scorpion venom is the most expensive liquid in the world. A species of wild mountain goat called the Picardo went extinct in the year 2000, but cells from the last animal were frozen in liquid nitrogen and scientists were able to clone it. This made the Picardo the first species of animal to become de-extinct. Sadly, the clone died only 7 minutes after being born, also making it the only species to go extinct twice. Weird War Facts, Part 13. Nicknamed White Death, Finnish sniper Simo Häyhä killed over 500 Soviet soldiers during the Winter War. He did it in less than 100 days using nothing but a hunting rifle with no scope. When asked what he felt while killing an enemy soldier, he responded, "The recoil." This was the breastplate of 19-year-old Antoine Frevaux. He was struck and killed by a cannonball while serving under Napoleon Bonaparte during the Battle of Waterloo in 1815. These German prisoners of war were forced to watch a film on the atrocities of the Holocaust. Many of them were outright horrified and even burned their Nazi uniforms after watching the footage. Morbid Facts, Part 91. Ever since she was a little girl, Jewel Shuping wanted to be blind. So in 2006, she poured drain cleaner into her eyes and blinded herself. She says that she is happier than ever after fulfilling her lifelong wish. Less than 24 hours after you die, your pet cat will start eating your face. Charlie No Face was an urban legend in Pennsylvania who used to walk along the side of highways at night. In reality, he was a man named Raymond Robinson who was left badly disfigured after a childhood electrocution accident. He only went out at night so his face wouldn't scare people, and he was said to be a friendly and well-liked man. Morbid Facts, Part 89. Bullets fired into the air usually fall back down at terminal velocity. As a result, there have been thousands of deaths due to celebratory gunfire. For example, in 2003, more than 20 people were killed by celebratory gunfire in Iraq following the deaths of Saddam Hussein's two sons. Chemical castration is mandatory in Florida and California for pedophiles convicted of their second offense. During a 2019 expedition to the deepest point in the ocean, explorers found a plastic bag and candy wrappers, indicating that plastic pollution hasn't spared even the most remote corners of the ocean. Morbid Facts, Part 88. This elderly woman from Brooklyn is a hoarder who also happens to be legally blind. At some point in the 1990s, her son who lived in the house disappeared. In 2016, his fully clothed skeleton was found in a room filled with garbage. She had been living with his corpse for 20 years. These are just some of the reasons why people used to be committed to mental asylums. In 2006, 5-year-old Robert Turner called 911 after his mother collapsed in her bedroom. But the operator hung up after asking him to put an adult on the phone and assuming it was a prank. 3 hours later, he called 911 again and another operator told him to stop prank calling. This time, police were sent to the home where they found that the mother of 10 had died from a heart attack. Weird Crime Facts, Part 21. In 1996, 14-year-old Barry Lukaitis opened fire on his high school algebra class in Washington State. He killed 2 fellow students and the teacher. As his classmates were panicking, he was quoted saying, "This sure beats the hell out of algebra, doesn't it?" He is currently serving out a 189-year prison sentence for the murders. The Dutch police once caught some cannabis growers because their house was the only one on the street without snow on the roof. Stephen Russell escaped prison by using laxatives to fake the symptoms of AIDS. He then called the prison posing as a doctor and asked for any inmates who were interested in experimental AIDS treatment. He volunteered, and once he was out of Texas, he sent a fake death certificate to the prison stating that he had died. Morbid Facts, Part 92. President FDR was having a portrait painted of himself by a watercolor artist on April 12, 1945. But he had been complaining about a headache and suddenly collapsed before the painting was finished. The president had suffered a stroke and died later that day. The unfinished portrait captures his final waking moments. Children that have been exposed to family violence show the same patterns of brain activity as soldiers who have been in combat. In the year 2000, a man survived a jump off the Golden Gate Bridge but broke his back on impact. He was saved from drowning by a sea lion who kept him afloat until rescuers could reach him. Ever since the incident, the man has said that as soon as he jumped, he realized he didn't want to die. Morbid Facts, Part 94. A woman from Edinburgh, Scotland thought that her frequent nosebleeds were caused by a motorcycle accident. But one day she felt something poking out of her nose while she was taking a shower, and she found the culprit. A 3-inch long leech had been living in her nostril for more than a month. Pool drains are literally powerful enough to suck your organs right out of your body, and it's one of the grisliest ways in which people have died. Starting in the 16th century, the Catholic Church used to castrate young Italian boys to preserve their high-pitched singing voices. Alessandro Moreschi, aka the Last Castrato, sang until his death in 1921. Weird War Facts, Part 14. Before making his name in Hollywood, Rob Riggle served in the U.S. Marine Corps for 23 years. He received several awards and commendations for his service in Kosovo, Afghanistan, and Liberia. This is how enemy aircraft was detected before the invention of radar. During World War II, there was a Soviet woman whose husband was killed by the Nazis. To avenge her husband's death, the woman sold all of her possessions and bought a tank, which she nicknamed the Fighting Girlfriend. With permission from the Soviet Union, she hunted down Nazis with her own tank. Weird Nature Facts, Part 21. The largest organism in the world is a giant mushroom in Oregon's Malheur National Forest. Its root system is the size of 1,500 football fields, and it might be as much as 8,000 years old. The Costa Rican glass frog has transparent skin, allowing you to see its organ structure. A bite from the Brazilian wandering spider can cause men to have an erection lasting longer than 4 hours. There have been no recorded fatal attacks of wild orcas on humans. In 2005, a 12-year-old boy in Alaska was bumped by a killer whale while splashing in 4 feet of water. The boy was likely mistaken for a seal, and the bump was an aborted attack once the whale realized its mistake. All 4 times that humans have been killed by orcas were in captivity. Morbid Facts, Part 82. Author Lewis Carroll wanted to marry an 11-year-old girl named Alice when he was 31. It is widely accepted that Alice in Wonderland was inspired by his obsession for little Alice Liddell. This is what the skull of a bone cancer patient looks like. Maggie the Wonder Dog was found pregnant and blinded with 17 gunshot wounds on the streets of Lebanon. Now she's a certified therapy dog and has a large following on Instagram. An Italian company has designed organic burial pods that are completely biodegradable. It will convert the dead into nutrients for trees to grow on. So instead of a graveyard, this will create a sacred forest of new life. Morbid Facts, Part 95. Joe DiMaggio was so devastated when Marilyn Monroe died that he brought flowers to her grave 3 times a week for more than 20 years. He never remarried, and his last words were, "I'll finally get to see Marilyn." Tokyo University's Medical Pathology Museum has a collection of 105 full-body tattoo skins. In the year 2000, a group of therapists were attempting to treat 10-year-old Candace Newmaker's attachment disorder. They were trying a controversial method known as rebirthing. Candace was first wrapped in flannels to represent a womb. She was then sat on by 4 grown adults and was told to free herself. Within 20 minutes, she started screaming and vomiting, but they continued the treatment. Nearly an hour later, she was dead. Recently as 1985, doctors believed that babies couldn't feel pain and performed surgeries on them without anesthesia. Due to their unique spinal structure, elephants are not meant to carry heavy loads on their backs. They often suffer severe spinal injuries as a result of carrying tourists around for several hours each day. Morbid Facts, Part 84. This is a photo of a Chicago mother hiding her face in shame after putting her children up for sale in 1948. The 2 that are circled were sold to an abusive family for $2 apiece so that their mother could afford to pay rent. Their new father would often chain them up in a barn and force them to work long hours on his farm. He even frequently called them slaves, even though they didn't know what it meant at the time. In 1867, Carolyn Walter died from tuberculosis when she was just 17 years old. So her devastated sister Selma paid a sculptor to carve a beautiful headstone to remember her by. And every morning after Carolyn's funeral, a fresh flower was found tucked under the arm of her statue. This tradition still continues today, more than 150 years after her death, and no one knows who leaves them.